Thomas the Tank Engine was feeling worn out and down on himself. His teasing had gotten him in a lot of trouble with Gordon, the big express engine. He had been dragged from his yard on the back of the express because the train left so quickly, and now he'd been left at this station only after the express came to a stop and everyone had laughed at him. His driver was talking to him. "Never mind, old boy. You may have deserved a trick on you, but Gordon will be in trouble with the fat director, you can be sure of that. However, we better get back there as soon as we can. Goodness knows what the yard will look like without its shunting engine." It took some time for Thomas to catch his breath to get up steam to move. He rolled onto the main line, still feeling sorry for himself. As he chuffed down the line, Thomas began to realize something. Rolling on his own sounded different. It wasn't like the busy yards, even when he was the only engine around. He looked all around him. Once leaving the station, it was only wide open fields. It was green, vast, and quiet. He certainly never saw bright colors like this at the station. It was true that Thomas and Edward had been the first engines on Sodor when the railway was new and had helped build it. But the little blue tank engine had done all his helping from the yard, shunting trains of supplies for the other engines to take. Even where he'd been built, he'd rarely seen such open expanses of green without man-made structures that didn't block the view of the horizon. It felt strange to be away from the only world he knew, but it was all deeply interesting to the curious young engine. He started to wonder what he'd see next. Not even the rude laughter from Gordon as he thundered along the track towards Vickerstown could dampen his spirits for long. He puffed easily up the big hill and into the small station of Marin. Thomas was very surprised to see how small it was. It was such a small station, there was no need for a shunter. He thought all stations had pilot engines, but Marin certainly didn't need one. Much further down the line, as they approached a bridge, Thomas saw some children were waving at him. The only waving he had come to know was the hand signals the shunters and signalmen used to talk with the engines over a distance. He wondered what these signals meant. "Why are they waving at us like that? Do they need me to shunt a train for them?" "They're waving hello to us, Thomas," chuckled his driver. "Waving hello," Thomas said slowly, processing that statement. Looking up at the children, Thomas saw they were still waving. A thought came to him. Whenever someone greeted you, it was only polite to return it. So he gave a friendly hello on his whistle. The children giggled happily and watched until he was out of sight. Slowly, Thomas felt a warmth rising in his boiler. It felt nice to say hello to someone who would say hello back, especially when it was children. The adults at the station never seemed to wave a welcome to any engine. They just seemed to grumble more. Children, at least, seemed more welcoming than their parents. And Thomas was normally waved at the station, where he was pulling coaches into the platform or shunting in the yards. He'd always just thought that was their way of thanking him for his efforts because of the work he was doing as the station pilot. But now, out here in the countryside, on his own, he was granted a personal greeting without needing to be doing work. It made him feel very special, and his aching wheels ached a lot less. Further down the line, he saw a farmer's field with a farmer and his ox plowing from green stubble to brown earth. Thomas wondered if he could give a greeting to someone. He blew his whistle to say hello, and the farmer turned and gave a friendly wave in return. Soon, Thomas chuffed past a station that ran by another railway, with small tracks and small coaches and trucks. As he rounded the bend past the station, he saw one of the small engines who ran it. It was red, with a small boiler and cab. It blew a welcoming whistle as Thomas rolled past. Thomas happily returned it. He was seeing other engines who lived on a railway unlike any he had seen before, and he never would have known they were real if he hadn't seen them himself. Everywhere seemed to be nothing but welcoming wherever he went, and he didn't need to be pulling a train to earn that honor. His first time going through the tunnel was a very exciting time as well. He'd been through it once before, but during that time he was focused on calling for Gordon to stop. The sound of his chuffing echoing around in the tunnel made him sound bigger than he was, and his whistle sounded like a songbird. Tunnels sure are a lot of fun. Why don't they have that at the yards? He thought to himself. It was then that Thomas realized something else. How all of these sights he'd seen were not at his home. The station and its yards were all he had known. Tracks snaked out everywhere, and all were usually clogged with coaches and trucks, waiting for him to move them from the siding to the platform, or to assemble them together and wait for the engine to take them away. Few engines said thank you. Many just yelled at him to hurry up or get out of their way. With the exception of his crew, the fat director, and Edward, no one seemed to be happy. They were always in a rush, tired, or just ignored him. And no matter how fast Thomas moved, it was never fast enough for them. Meanwhile, the other engines who pulled the trains he assembled got to see green fields, different railways, and friendly faces who'd greet them wherever they went. They got to see all that, and yet they didn't seem the least bit grateful for it. Or, at the very least, never talked about it. The bigger engines usually talked about how fast they ran or how many trains they pulled before going to sleep. It seemed to Thomas they took the attention of the clients and passengers and probably ignored the rest. Well, that's not fair at all, he thought. Soon Thomas puffed into the yards. It was in a dreadful state. He could see the fat director shouting at Gordon, who hardly seemed to care. "You naughty engine! Look at the mess you've created!" "That blue brat had it coming. I am an important engine, and important engines need their rest. How can I if I'm startled awake and told I'm the lazy one? Thomas's place is here in the yards, and dragging him behind the express, it'll be a miracle if he's in one piece." "Hello, sir," Thomas puffed meekly. The fat director looked at the little blue engine. He looked a bit relieved, but he still had a stern look on his face. "Well, Thomas, I had hoped to speak to you about your cheeky attitude. But it seems Gordon took matters into his own buffers." Gordon smiled smugly as the conductor blew his whistle and puffed out of the station. The fat director watched him go. "But make no mistake, I'll see that Gordon is taught a lesson for what he did. In the meantime, I want you to rest in the goods shed. I'll send some inspectors to look you over and have Edward cover your shunting in the meantime." Thomas whistled, "Thank you," and puffed back to the yard. That night, Gordon was extra loud in the sheds. "It was stunning. Fastest run of my life. I didn't even notice the extra weight." The other big engines all laughed and jeered at Thomas, who was being looked over. He held his tongue as he was too tired. He hoped the fat director would set him right. Eventually, Thomas went to sleep, but the memories of his trip down the main line stuck in his mind. No one knew it, not even Thomas. This trip had created the seed of an idea, a seed that had settled into his smokebox and taken root. In a few months' time, it would blossom and grow to form an idea that would turn into an unstoppable desire. A desire most station pilots never had once in their normal working lives. The little blue tank engine wanted more than to just be really useful. He wanted to see the world.